Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Godzilla and Kong the New Empire, number 2 would be The First Omen, number 3 would be Monkey Man, number 4 would be Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and number 5 would be Dune Part 2. And surprisingly, I only got 1 out of 5 of my predictions right. I didn't actually expect this to be as as challenging as it ended up being. A lot of you made similar predictions. Some of you tried to, predict something different, but ultimately there was only one person who got their predictions right for this weekend who did not edit their comment. And also, they didn't put it up like 2 days ago on Friday when like articles come out saying like, it's probably going to be this. So congratulations. Here's your shout out. Let's just dive on into what happened this weekend. Number 1 was once again Godzilla and Kong, the New Empire. Pretty surprising. I don't think anyone is surprised about that per se. I was wondering how the hold was going to be, and it didn't drop drastically. It's, about average for, these kind of like big blockbuster movies that, maybe fans, like if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, audience score is pretty high. Critic score is a little more mixed. It's kind of an appropriate kind of drop off for that. Dropped off about 60%. So this weekend it made $31 million, which now adds to a domestic total of $135 million. So it has outgrossed Godzilla vs. Kong by $35 million domestically and King of the Monsters by $25 million. It now needs 33 until it outgrosses Skull Island. It'll probably get there soon enough. Worldwide, it is now sitting at $302 million, so it has already doubled its $135 million budget, made $32 million over that at this point, so congrats. It now needs $415 million to triple that initial production budget. I'm sure we'll be seeing it inch its way towards there very soon. It is still behind King of the Monsters worldwide for the legendary MonsterVerse series, this time by $81 million. So domestically, it's racking up the numbers. Worldwide, it still has a ways to go, but either way, it's already doubled its budget. As I mentioned, it's inching its way to triple it, so this is already doing very well for itself. The drop-off doesn't really matter since both domestically and worldwide are kind of working together in this instance to up the numbers in a big way. So yeah, nothing new to report here, nothing else to comment on. So let's just move right along to number 2, which was Monkey Man, not The First Omen like I thought, which, hey, I'll take an original film, topping the charts over other like established IP stuff. It doesn't matter if I like or dislike the said established IP, just an original idea, that's good. And especially since the budget for this movie is apparently, kind of shockingly when you see the movie, but apparently the budget is only $10 million, the initial production budget. It has made $10 million for its opening weekend, and worldwide it's only bumped up a little bit to $12 million, but at the rate it's at right now, it will be able to at least double this budget, which, as we've talked about, is the gold standard for if your movie's a success or not. So there you go, Dev Patel, his directorial debut already kind of doing very well for himself. I think people are really interested to see just what he had up his sleeve for this movie. They heard the word of mouth of people raving about it at South by Southwest and probably the behind the scenes stories of Jordan Peele talking about it. This actually has a pretty good cinema score, so I think people will talk about it. I don't know if it'll have like this crazy ass hold, but I do think, it will get more people interested to see it in the coming weeks. So it may not be this big smashing hit, but I think it will resonate with some people, and we'll see whatever happens with Dev Patel as a director later on. It's got to be very exciting for him that he's essentially made back the initial production budget already. For Monkey Paw Productions, since this is technically under that umbrella, the opening is $9 million over Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, if you remember that one. $1 million over Keanu, and it's a couple 100,000 over BlacKkKlansman. So although it is on the lower end of opening weekends for the company as a whole, it still, has outgrossed for the opening weekend these films, which, is pretty good. And then everything else, it's 12 million below Candyman. Makes sense, horror movie IP, and they plastered Jordan Peele's name on it like he made this new horror film, and people love Jordan Peele horror. It's 23 million below the opening of Get Out, 34 million below Nope, and 61 million below Us. So as far as the non-directed Jordan and non-horror movie Jordan Peele produced movies, it's pretty good, besting all the other ones. So there you go. As far as the domestic totals, it did already outgross Honk for Jesus by 8 million and now needs 10 million until it outgrosses Keanu. Worldwide, as I mentioned, because it's sitting at 12 million, it is 10 million over Honk for Jesus, and it needs 8 million until it outgrosses Keanu. So there you have it. It's probably going to be a modest hit, and then I think people will just continue to talk about it because a lot of people have been talking about how impressive of a debut this is for Dev Patel and how much they want to see more from him. So yeah, I think this will resonate very well. Number 3 was actually Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, holding out over the other new release film this weekend, making $9 million, adding to a domestic total of $88 million. It needs $24 million now until it outgrosses Ghostbusters 2. Its third weekend, and it still isn't really that close to outgrossing 2. I mean, I still see it happening, obviously, but I'm sure Sony was expecting it to be a little quicker. Worldwide, it is sitting at 138 million. So not only is that 65 million below Afterlife now, but it is also 62 million away from actually doubling its initial production budget of $100 million. Makes you think, they relied so much on these Ghostbusters movies, especially the later ones, rely so much on basically just domestic intake, since they can't put this in China because, ghosts, and they hate ghosts. So they rely so much on domestic. And I think it's fair to say that, and maybe I'm incorrect on this, but it just seems like more people in the United States care about Ghostbusters more than other territories. I mean, look at this right now. As far as like where it's been released, the U.S. intake is making up most of the overall worldwide total right here. So I think it's a pretty fair assessment. And they really bet their bets on upping the budget from the last one. Maybe this will, maybe we're truly back and we'll get people in. And it had a pretty strong debut, but then it couldn't compete with Godzilla and Kong, and it's still kind of holding on considering the other competition, but its main competition was overall Godzilla and Kong. And it still hasn't doubled its initial production budget. It's interesting how Afterlife had a lower budget, and even though it didn't make well over 200 million, it still got a little bit over that point, but because the budget was 75 million, they looked at that as a success, a really big success story. And now as they're trying to get more into the 100 million area, like these other bigger blockbusters, now it's seeming like it's not quite working. I mean, if their budget was 75 million, they'd only need 12 million worldwide to be considered a initial success, right? Because that's the doubling point of initial 75 million budget. So makes you think, they were so quick to make a bigger Ghostbusters movie, get literally every character back, and then you just look at Afterlife, which was more small scale, and that worked out better for them. Just makes you think. Number 4 was The First Omen. Unfortunately, this did not do better than I was hoping when I made the prediction, but then also after I saw the movie on Thursday night. This is my plea to everyone. I don't know if I'll be able to make a review anytime soon just because of my schedule, but go see this movie. It is so good. It's such a great horror movie, really great stuff. I would love for this to be a success story. Right now it's not looking good. It only made $8 million this weekend. This is on a budget of $30 million, so not too big of a budget compared to how large these IP films get, but there is no worldwide total right now. And kind of similar to Ghostbusters, maybe it might not be too big in other places, so it's just kind of a bummer. If we can just rally behind this movie, please. They put the money into it too, by the way. It cost $30 million, and it feels like they didn't put that money to waste. That's my plea, though. Okay, just go see the movie. Right now, it's not looking great. The opening weekend, though, for the Omen franchise, at the very least, it is below the 2006 remake by $8 million. But it is $8 million over Awakening, $3 million over The Final Conflict, $5 million over Damien Omen 2, and $4 million over the original film. So it's just, it didn't make higher than the remake, which is, that's blasphemous. Because this is a much better film than literally all of the remake and all of the sequels. It's a good companion with the original film. If that means anything to you, if that convinces you to go see what this movie's all about. As far as domestic intakes, it has outgrossed Omen 4 The Awakening by $8 million, but that's because it didn't go to theaters. It was like a made-for-TV kind of sequel. I guess similar to like what they did with like Firestarter 2, is that right? Because they kind of did something like that. It doesn't matter, either way. It still needs 12 million right now until it outgrosses Omen 3 The Final Conflict. So yeah, just hear my plea. Go see this movie, go check it out. It is so worth your money. It does not deserve to be just shut out and ignored like this. Please, please, please. Next week we only have, the only new release that I could see was Civil War. That's a little bit of a break before we get the next Guy Ritchie film the week after, and Abigail. So if we can just Abigail's going to be big competition probably. If you can all just go see The First Omen as soon as you can, that would be great. Number 5, we have Kung Fu Panda 4 making $7.8 million, adding to a domestic total of $166 million. It just outgrossed Kung Fu Panda 2 by $1 million. It now needs $49 million until it outgrosses the original. Worldwide, it is sitting at $408 million, where it still has yet to outgross any of the other sequels. It now needs $98 million until it outgrosses 3, so it's getting closer, but domestically, this has been clearing the other films, and I'm not sure if it'll get this $49 million to get to the original, but it's inching closer and closer, you know? And then worldwide, it's kind of struggling a bit, so interesting to say the least. But like we've discussed, because the budget is lower, for reasons you should maybe look into, you know, they can count this as a really big win. I mean, it's Jack Black's favorite Kung Fu Panda movie, he believes, allegedly. At number 6, we have Dune Part 2. First time it has not been in the top 5 for the month that it's been out. So kind of crazy. It took a month, but it's out of the top 5. Crazy. It made $7.2 million, which adds to a domestic total of $264 million worldwide. It is now sitting at $638 million. Way to go, everyone. They just announced Denis Villeneuve's next film, which is not Dune Messiah just yet. I think he already said a while ago he wants to wait a little bit on that, but they already announced his next film, which I'm sure will have a lot of great, but I think a lot similar to like Christopher Nolan, people started to recognize his name because of his, you know, work with franchise films, but then all of his other stuff surrounding that's not necessarily Batman IP. I think that might be the case here. You know, Denis Villeneuve, people will recognize his name from Dune, and then you already have his support from people like, you know, people like me who really love Prisoners or Enemy or Sicario, you know. I think he really has made a name for himself, and I can't wait to see what happens with his next film. Let's move on to number 7, which is Someone Like You, which you might not have heard of, but it's a Fathom event. It's based off of a novel where a guy loses his girlfriend to an accident, but then he realizes there's a twin that the family hid away or didn't know about, and he goes to see that twin and falls in love with the twin. And maybe a part of the movie is he gets upset that the twin doesn't act the same, something like that. It looked ridiculous. It made $3 million this weekend. Not sure what the budget of this thing is, but hey, $3 million for a Fathom event for a movie not many people know of. Good job. It's based on a book, so some people do, but it doesn't matter. Let's move on to number 8, which is Arthur the King, making $1.5 million, adding to a domestic total of $22 million. Still no significant worldwide total to really bump it up. It is still really slacking from doubling that $19 million budget. But at least they've crossed over the initial point by $3 million. Not that that says anything about its success, obviously. Let's move on to number 9, which is Immaculate. Slowly, you know, almost there to doubling that $9 million budget. It made $1.4 million, adding to a domestic total of $14 million. For Neon, it has outgrossed 3 Identical Strangers by $2 million. It now needs $4 million until it outgrosses Ferrari, and then at that point, it will enter the top 3 highest grossing films for Neon domestically. Right now, it's at number 4. So that is pretty goddamn special. And Ferrari was recent. It's kind of crazy. I think I already talked about it when Immaculate came out. Neon, you know, people will recognize the logo now, but, you know, for the longest time, they have not really been releasing commercially successful films. It's a lot of films that, you know, have garnered a cult following, or, you know, Parasite is like their highest grossing film right now, and that's because, you know, won Best Picture. People really were talking about that one. So yeah, this movie actually sneaking up there so quickly is not that surprising, but it just speaks volumes to people starting to kind of recognize what Neon might have to offer. Or it's just the power of Sydney Sweeney. Maybe it's just that. Worldwide, its total is sitting at $16 million, so it needs $2 million until it doubles that $9 million budget. For Neon's worldwide list, it is a couple $100,000 over Spencer. It now needs $3 million until it outgrosses Anatomy of a Fall, also last year. And then, once it outgrosses that film, it'll be in Neon's top 5 for their worldwide run. So there you go, Immaculate. And then closing out the video, number 10, Late Night with the Devil, making $1.1 million, adding to a domestic total of $8.4 million. Still not sure what the budget of this thing is, but worldwide, it's bumped up a little bit to $9.08 million. And for IFC domestically, it has outgrossed Death of Stalin by a couple $100,000, and now needs $5 million until it outgrosses Y Tu Mama Tambien. And then at that point, it will be in the top 3 highest grossing IFC films domestically. Right now, it's at number 4. So I think we talked about it when these movies came out, but this movie and Immaculate being in a similar boat is kind of crazy, and their successes are pretty damn good. Worldwide, it's very much so lower on the list. Worldwide, IFC has had, like, really big wins, so... but domestically, you know, they've, you know, really caught up here, so that's pretty damn special. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I'm going once again with Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. I think no matter how much it drops next weekend, I don't think it'll be too much more, but I still think it will squeeze out ahead of our number 2 prediction, which is Civil War. I think some people will go see this based off of interest alone. I'm not sure how well this will do outside of interest, though. You know what I mean? So we'll see. I think it'll at least get to number 2. Number 3, I think, will be Monkey Man. Number 4, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And number 5, The First Omen. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.